One moment Mark Whitmore was commanding the room, projecting numbers, growth targets, and shareholder confidence. The next, he was gasping, choking, eyes rolled back, mouth wide open. Then silence, dead, terrifying silence. His $1,000 pen rolled off the table. Nobody moved, not the VP of Finance, not the COO, not even his own assistant. The man who ruled this company like a fortress just collapsed in front of everyone, helpless, powerless. And then, the doors burst open. A woman pushed past two stunned executives like they weren't even there, dropped to her knees beside him, pressed two fingers to his neck. No pulse. Without missing a beat, she locked her hands and started compressions. 30. 2 breaths. Again. "Isn't that the woman he just fired?" someone whispered. No one answered, because everyone in that room knew it was true. Just hours ago, she was humiliated in this very boardroom, spoken to like she was less than nothing, told to get out, told she didn't belong. Now she was the only person who knew what to do. And while the rest of them stood frozen in fear, she fought to keep the man who fired her from dying right there on the floor. Someone call 911, now. But deep down, they all knew, without her, he wouldn't make it to the ambulance. And in that moment, everything started to change. Earlier that morning, Kesha Monroe stood in the hallway outside the executive boardroom, holding a mop handle in one hand and a bin of sanitized rags in the other. Same way she had for the last 12 years. Same hallway, same scent of lemon floor wax, same silence. Only today, something was different. Inside, a group of interns in fresh-pressed suits buzzed around the entrance like they owned it. First day of orientation, Whitmore Dynamics' annual Future Leaders of Wall Street program. And Kesha? She was just trying to get in, do her job, and get out before the morning stampede. Then the glass doors swung open. Mark Whitmore stepped out, polished, commanding, tailored gray suit, platinum tie clip, voice loud enough to bounce off the marble walls. His eyes scanned the room, then landed on her. "You again?" he said. He didn't even say her name. Kesha nodded politely. "Just need to get the floors in here before it gets busy. Takes less than 10. He cut her off with a smirk. "Maybe you should mop up your attitude, too." Laughter. From the interns, from the guy in HR, a few uncomfortable chuckles from mid-level managers who knew better, but didn't dare speak. Kesha didn't flinch, she didn't clap back, she just gripped the cart a little tighter. Mark turned to the interns. "This is why you work hard," he said, gesturing toward her. "So you don't end up pushing a bucket for a living. No offense." She stood there. Not angry, not surprised. Just tired. Tired of being talked to like she was invisible. Tired of being treated like she was furniture in the building, useful, but not worth acknowledgement. Then came the final blow. "Security will escort you out," he added. "You're no longer needed on this floor." Kesha stared at him, eyes locked, saying nothing. HR didn't look her in the eye. No one in that hallway said a word in her defense. Not one. She packed her supplies, rolled the cart back toward the service elevator, the same way she'd come. And as she walked away, someone muttered under their breath, "She's just the janitor." But what none of them knew was that by sundown, the same woman they dismissed like trash would become the only reason their CEO had a heartbeat. Long before that boardroom moment, before the mop bucket, before the CEO's sneer, before the 42nd floor silence broke wide open, Kesha Monroe had a different plan for her life. Born and raised in Newark, New Jersey. South Ward, row houses, corner bodegas, cracked sidewalks, and more sirens than lullabies. But her mother, Denise Monroe, held it down. Single parent, worked 12-hour shifts as a trauma nurse at University Hospital. The kind of woman who could patch up a bullet wound and make cornbread in the same hour. She used to say, "You don't wait for heroes, you train to be one." Kesha listened, watched her mom come home with blood on her scrubs and pride in her eyes. By the time she hit high school, she already knew she didn't want to sit in no office. She wanted action, sirens, pressure, leaves on the line. So she enrolled at Essex County College, emergency medical tech program, graduated top of her intro class. She was on her way. Then, life happened. Her brother Darnell got locked up, felony charge. No trial, no appeal, just gone. Suddenly, Kesha had a new role, guardian. Her 6-year-old niece, Nyla, needed a roof, school lunches, asthma meds. And paramedic dreams don't pay electric bills. So Kesha traded textbooks for time cards, started cleaning office buildings by night. Whitmore Dynamics was just a name on the badge at first, one of 3 jobs she worked to stay afloat. But the dream? It never really left her. Every break she got, she pulled out old EMT manuals, downloaded CPR drills on her phone, and when a local church in East Orange ran a free urban emergency response program, she signed up, no questions asked. 3 months later, she was certified in CPR, AED, and basic trauma support. She kept the cards laminated in her wallet, not for show, for readiness. She never told anyone at work. They barely noticed her in the first place. But she stayed sharp, just in case the day ever came when somebody in that glass tower needed saving. That day came. Back in that boardroom, the clock hadn't moved, but everything else had. Mark Whitmore lay sprawled on the floor, jaw clenched, skin pale. The man who once filled this room with commands and cold ambition now gasped for breath he couldn't find. And for a few frozen seconds, nobody did a thing. Executives just stared, some in shock, others too afraid to act. Not one MBA in that room had the training to handle a real emergency. All that power, and not a clue what to do when the boss's heart betrayed him. But Kesha Monroe? She was already 2 steps ahead. She checked his pulse. Nothing. Head tilted, airway cleared, and then, in a voice no one had ever heard from her before, she took control. "You," she barked, pointing at a junior exec. "Lift his legs now. Keep the blood flowing." He blinked, confused. "Do it," she snapped. He scrambled to obey. "You." She turned to a frozen intern still clutching a Starbucks cup. "Go to the hallway. Get the AED. Red box on the wall, 10 feet left. Move." The kid bolted like his job depended on it. Maybe it did. She started compressions again. Hard, steady, exact. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. 30 compressions, 2 breaths, repeat. The murmurs stopped. No one laughed now. No one dared. "V-fib," she muttered under her breath, listening to the irregular gasping. Hearts misfiring. She knew that rhythm. Chaotic, deadly. "He's in V-fib. I need those paddles. Now." And just like that, doors flew open again. EMTs charged in. "Step aside," one of them said. But before they could touch him, she hit them with a report so precise it stopped them mid-step. No pulse. Unconscious for approximately 90 seconds. Agonal breathing started at around 45. Suspected ventricular fibrillation. CPR administered. 2 rounds complete. AED on the way. The lead medic looked at her like, "Who is this woman?" She didn't answer. She didn't have to. She stayed kneeling until the machine arrived. Watched them take over with the exact same rhythm she had used. Perfect timing. Perfect pressure. Perfect protocol. And that's when the execs realized the janitor they just fired was the only one in the room keeping Mark Whitmore alive. Right then, in the middle of corporate chaos, Kesha Monroe didn't just break the silence. She owned the room. Not with titles, not with money, but with calm, practiced skill and the unshakable authority of someone who's been ready for this moment her whole life. Later that day, the silence in the hospital waiting room was thick. Suits loosened their ties. Shoes that once clicked with confidence now shuffled nervously against cold tile. Phone screens lit up faces pale with anxiety, texts to spouses, assistants, legal teams. Mark Whitmore was alive, but unconscious. And no one could shake the question ringing louder than the heart monitor down the hall. How did this happen? A whisper broke through the tension. "Why didn't security ever check catering?" Another voice chimed in, lower, almost guilty. He was the only one who touched that coffee cup. Heads turned. It was true. No one else drank from it. Not the CFO, not the interns. Just Mark. And now he was in cardiac ICU. The company's head of security, pressed shirt, 2 decades in private defense, stared at the floor. He didn't have answers. But the footage did. Less than an hour later, grainy security video from the executive suite surfaced. Lobby camera, angle facing the snack cart. Playback at 10:42 a.m. Randy. Intern, barely 21, wiry, nervous, smart, too quiet for corporate life. You could see it in his body language, shoulders tight, eyes darting. He looked both ways, leaned over the coffee tray, and slipped something into the CEO's cup. Small, precise, premeditated, no hesitation. The room watching the tape fell completely still. It was Randy, no doubt. The same intern Mark Whitmore had ridiculed on day 1, said he lacked backbone. Mocked his resume, said community college? You must have taken a wrong turn. What Mark didn't know was that Randy's father had once worked for Whitmore Dynamics too. A forklift operator in the warehouse division. 20 years on the job. No complaints, no write-ups, until he got laid off during a restructuring. No severance, no pension. He died 2 years later, Heart failure. No insurance. No help. Randy had never forgotten. And when he landed an internship through a diversity hiring initiative, he didn't see it as opportunity. He saw it as access. A chance to walk through the very halls where his father had been discarded. To stand face to face with the man who'd signed the paper that erased his family's future. And now? That revenge had a body count. Almost. If not for one woman. The same woman Mark fired with a smug grin and a snide remark. The same woman security didn't even report missing from the shift log. The same woman no one listened to until she was the only one left with a voice. Kesha Monroe didn't just save a life that day. She exposed a rot that had been festering beneath polished floors and glass offices for years. A system that let men like Mark rise without question and people like Randy and his father disappear without justice. And now, that system was starting to crack. It didn't stay quiet for long. Less than 24 hours after the incident, the surveillance footage leaked. First on a fringe tech blog, then on Reddit. Then it hit X, formerly Twitter. By the end of the night, it was everywhere. The angle was grainy, but the story was clear. An intern tampering with the CEO's coffee. A janitor, previously fired, rushing in to save the man's life. By morning, 2 hashtags were trending nationwide. #janitor hero, Whitmore exposed. And then, the second shoe dropped. A cell phone recording from inside the boardroom. The moment Mark Whitmore publicly humiliated Kesha Monroe. The smirk, the sarcasm, the interns laughing as she clutched her mop handle with both hands. Maybe you should mop up your attitude too. Those words echoed now like a bad punchline at a murder trial. Viewers didn't just see disrespect, they saw routine abuse. A woman doing her job, treated like trash, then saving the very man who tried to discard her. The response was immediate. MSNBC ran a feature segment, Invisible Labor, Visible Bravery. The Breakfast Club invited her for a live interview. Clips went viral on TikTok, stitched by nurses, firefighters, teachers, everyday people who'd been overlooked, underpaid, underestimated. And Kesha? She showed up. Pressed shirt, simple earrings, no PR coach, no stylist. She sat in front of that mic and told the world what it was. "This ain't just about me," she said, voice steady but fierce. "Y'all been treating people like we're invisible. You walk past us in your offices, you talk down to us in elevators. And when something breaks, when someone stops breathing, you expect us to vanish. But let me tell you something. We are the ones keeping the whole damn building standing." Behind the scenes, Whitmore Dynamics scrambled. HR called emergency meetings. PR drafted apology statements that never sounded quite sincere. Legal reached out to Kesha's address with an offer. Confidential settlement, NDA, 6 figures, no interviews. She sent it back. Didn't even open the envelope. Because something had already shifted. The story wasn't theirs anymore. It was hers. And the world was listening. A week later, the company held its first all-hands meeting in over a decade. Not a quarterly report, not a numbers recap. This was different. Over 800 employees packed into the Whitmore Dynamics auditorium. Thousands more joined via live stream. The energy wasn't anticipation, it was reckoning. At center stage, under the glare of lights usually reserved for shareholder celebrations, stood Mark Whitmore. Pale, still recovering, suit slightly looser around the collar, but alive. He gripped the podium like it anchored him to something real, took a deep breath, and said the one sentence no one expected to hear from him. "If not for Kesha Monroe," he said, "I wouldn't be standing here today." The room went still. Not out of respect, out of disbelief. This was the man who fired her in front of a roomful of future executives. The same man who turned her job title into a punchline. Now he was crediting her with saving his life. He went on, reading from a paper his legal team probably revised a dozen times. "In recognition of her actions, we are offering Kesha a full-time position in our Corporate Safety and Emergency Response Division, effective immediately." It sounded noble. A good headline. A redemption arc. But Kesha? She wasn't there. She was across town at an old recreation center in East Orange, folding CPR dummies into storage bins. Because while Whitmore Dynamics tried to clean up their image, Kesha Monroe was building something real. She turned down the offer, respectfully, firmly, and instead launched something no one saw coming, a nonprofit, Pulse Point project, free CPR certification, AED training, trauma response education for low-income Black and Brown communities across Newark, East Orange, Patterson, and beyond. She knew who gets overlooked during emergencies, who doesn't get ambulances on time, who's called essential in a crisis, then tossed aside when the crisis passes. So she built something for them, with them. No suits, no buzzwords, no boardroom applause. Meanwhile, back at Whitmore Dynamics, the board quietly commissioned an inclusivity audit. An outside firm was brought in to review hiring practices, floor-level treatment, executive accountability. The head of HR resigned 2 days later. No statement, no farewell email, just gone. And in the hallway that used to echo with snide remarks and silent compliance, people started to look at the janitorial staff a little differently. Started saying thank you, started asking names. Not because the culture had magically changed, but because someone had forced it to reckon with the truth, not with anger, not with lawsuits, but with action. With life-saving hands, and a voice too steady to ignore. Back in Newark, the sun hung low over the South Ward, casting soft orange light across cracked sidewalks and chain-link fences. The world had moved on from hashtags and headlines, but Kesha Monroe hadn't. She stood at the front of a small, crowded room in the basement of the Freeman Street Community Center. Same center where her mother used to organize blood drives, coat giveaways, health screenings, back when nobody wanted to set foot past the highway. Now, folding chairs filled the space. Notebooks open, CPR dummies lined up on blue mats. Kesha moved between them with quiet authority, demonstrating chest compressions, guiding breaths, pausing only to let the rhythm sink in, staying alive, playing softly through a Bluetooth speaker, an old EMT trick to keep time. The students? Teenage girls, mostly Black, all sharp-eyed and focused, more curious than afraid. And in the back row, seated on the edge of her chair, was a girl Kesha knew better than anyone. Nyla. 14 now. Long braids, a sketchbook tucked under her arm, and a look that mixed admiration with a fierce kind of pride. She watched her aunt command the room with nothing but knowledge and lived experience. No podium, no salary bonus, just truth and skills that could save a life. After the class wrapped, people lined up to thank her. Some stayed behind, asking questions about jobs in healthcare, first responder pathways, how to volunteer. Kesha answered each one, patient and present. Then, just as she was packing up, a man stepped through the door. Tall, mid-50s, work boots, quiet eyes. He didn't say anything at first, just walked to the registration table and picked up a pen, signed his name slowly, then looked up. "I used to clean floors with you," he said. Kesha blinked. "Terry," he added. "Night shift. Whitmore, 2014-2019, she smiled. "Small, real. I remember," she said. He nodded. "Figured if anyone's gonna teach me how to do it right, it'd be you." He pulled up a chair, no fanfare, no cameras, just a man trying to learn something that might one day matter. Kesha handed him a CPR dummy. "Let's start with compressions," she said. And just like that, in a room built by legacy, filled with second chances and steady hands, the cycle started again. Not for show, not for headlines, but for the people who'd been unseen too long. Kesha Monroe's story made headlines, but it's not the headlines that matter, it's the truth behind them. Because the truth is, Kesha's story isn't rare. What's rare is that for once, somebody finally listened. In offices across America, there are women just like her, pushing carts down hallways that go silent when they enter, holding entire buildings together while being treated like they don't exist. Invisible labor. Visible only when something goes wrong. And sometimes, not even then. How many lives have been ignored, dismissed, underestimated? How many times have we walked past the people who clean our offices, serve our food, watch over our kids, and never looked them in the eye? When's the last time you asked their name, thanked them, saw them? Because the system wasn't built for them to be seen. It was built for them to stay quiet. To show up, stay small, and disappear when the job was done. But Kesha didn't disappear. She didn't wait for permission. She acted. She saved a man's life with skills nobody knew she had, because nobody ever thought to ask. And what happened after? That was the world being forced to catch up, forced to confront its own blindness. Montage rolls. A janitor in Houston performing CPR on a collapsed student in a school hallway. A food delivery worker in Chicago giving first aid to a man hit by a car before EMTs arrived. A building security guard in Atlanta stopping a fire from spreading because he knew how to work the extinguishers no one else touched. Real people, real stories, all public record, all ignored. Meanwhile, the numbers don't lie. According to the Economic Policy Institute, over 52% of janitorial and maintenance workers in the U.S. are people of color. Nearly 1/3 of them don't have employer-provided health insurance. And the median wage? Less than $15 an hour. Despite being the backbone of the buildings where million-dollar decisions get made. This isn't just about one boardroom, one act of CPR, one woman. This is about all the time someone said, she's just the janitor, he's just the cook, they're just the help. It's about what happens when those people show you they were never just anything. It's about what changes when we start seeing them differently. This was never just about saving a life. It was about saving dignity. It was about what happens when someone refuses to stay in the box the world built for them. About how real power doesn't always wear a suit. Sometimes it wears scuffed sneakers and pushes a mop down a marble hallway. Because the truth, in every glass tower, in every downtown high-rise, there are people like Kesha Monroe, carrying knowledge no one ever asks for, holding skills no one ever credits, and bearing weight no one ever sees. They clean the spills. They reset the rooms. They learn CPR in church basements, read medical manuals on night breaks, and keep quiet until someone needs saving. And when that moment comes, it's not the executives, not the board, not the million-dollar title holder who steps up. It's the person you looked through yesterday. It's the woman you fired an hour ago. It's the nobody who knew exactly what to do. Because sometimes, the janitor's the only one who knows how to keep things alive. So if this story moved you, if it made you think twice about who holds real power in this world, don't just scroll past. Subscribe for more stories that flip the script. Share this with someone who needs to be reminded what dignity looks like. Comment if you've ever felt unseen, underestimated, or dismissed. Because the next time the system starts to fail, it might not be a CEO who saves the day. It might be you.